This year, 1915, marks the first, or at least the earliest surviving film of Willis O'Brien, who was a pioneer of stop motion and
Hmm.
like using stop motion for like characters. A lot of the stop motion that we've seen thus far, some of it has been like characters moving around, but a lot of it has been like
Human characters, at least, because we had the Ladislaw
right,
bug movies.
yeah. But Willis O'Brien is probably most famous for doing the animation in King Kong, as well as a bunch of other movies from the 20s and 30s. But this is his first, like, prehistoric stop motion movie. And so it feels somewhat a piece with his later more famous work. It's much more much less refined.
Hmm.
Makes sense. Although it's interesting that this short film, The Dinosaur and the Missing Link, it's called, focuses much more on human characters than I think I expected. I expected something a bit more creature based.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's a bunch of sort of cartoon cavemen, um, getting into into trouble. um, there's one joke that I really did appreciate, or I really laughed at. That's just intertitled dialogue. When one of the one of the cave people walks out and says, "I'd offer you tea, but unfortunately, tea hasn't been invented yet." Classic prehistory joke.
I feel like we should do more of that kind of stuff in the news segment.
After watching Gertie the Dinosaur last year and this year, I am now expecting a dinosaur film every year, which is maybe unrealistic, but
And you'll be disappointed if there's not.
yeah.
One week, one dinosaur.
There is also like some, I guess, somewhat intentional humor of like all the cavemen speak in, I guess, sort of contemporary for the time English. So they say things like a mere trifle. And it's like, oh, that's not what cavemen sounded like.
I wonder, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that's like meant to be a joke or they just had not invented caveman speak yet.
No, they didn't know that Neanderthals only said things like 1, 2, 3 in high pitched voices.
Is that a reference to something?
It is. We can cut that out. Have you seen that? There's like a BBC documentary about Neanderthals, and there's this poor guy that is forced to like demonstrate how their like bodies and vocal cords affected their speech. And it.
Oh
like,
yes.
oh, they had a very large chest. So they were very loud, and then
2, 3,
yeah, they're very nasal. And it gets funnier and funnier each time he says the thing because he gets higher pitched and louder and more nasal. It's incredible.
It's a as close as I can get to what I wished was real with that mummy recreation voice.
Yes. Yeah.
the mummy going ah,
which is much funnier than although
yeah.
it's still pretty funny for a big buildup of like, we're gonna show you what mummies really sounded like.
That's a good
In
impression.
ancient Egypt, this is what people's voices were.